Ridgefield Inland Wetlands Board. Public hearing. Application IW24 19. 27 Abbot Avenue. September 26, 2024.
Okay, this is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Town of Ridgefield Inland Wetlands Board for Thursday, September 26, 2024. In attendance, we have Carson Fincham, David Smith, Alan Pilch, Tim Bishop, and Isaac Flatto, and myself, Susan Baker, and staff members Artie Paranjape, Caleb Johnson. And first on our agenda this evening will be IW 24-19, 27 Abbot Avenue, plenary ruling application for the construction of 10 residential townhouses with associated drainage and landscaping within the upland review area of wetlands and watercourses. Owner Vitan Alimi, applicant Brian Carey. And do we have new documents? I think we have new documents that Caleb will read into the record.
Yes. Okay. We have Land Tech response to Steve Danzer comments dated September 12, 2024. Steve Trinkus, 27 Abbot Avenue review dated September 24, 2024. Intervenor attorney correspondence dated September 24, 2024. DEP listed species to protect. Intervenor reply to applicant introduction of irrelevant materials. 27 Abbot Avenue site plan dated September 25th, 2024. 27 Abbot Avenue drainage report dated September 25th, 2024. Carson Fincham resume. Land Tech response to Artel engineering comments dated September 24th, 2024. Public correspondence dated September 23rd, 2024. 27 Abbot Avenue drainage report dated September 26th, 2024. Land Tech response to SLR comments dated September 24th, 2024. SLR response email dated September 25th, 2024.
Thank you. Okay, so, and we don't have a peer reviewer here for biological review, but we just received a note from her saying that she had nothing further to say. Is that correct, Caleb?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. All right, then. I think we should turn it over to the applicant first. I see Brian Carey is able to come on.
Good evening, Brian Carey, for the applicant, Vitan Almi. I'm with Land Tech Consultants in Westport, Connecticut. Jay Klein is joining on, who is the counsel for the applicant, as well as Andy Sevelides, who's the principal of Land Tech. I don't know if he could be promoted.
Okay.
So basically, since the last meeting, we have received comments from Artel Engineering, SLR, and there's been some additional information that's been put into the record by interveners. We've done our best to respond to all of the information that has been put into the record in a positive manner, making sure that we are addressing all of the comments and recommendations that have been provided to us by the third party reviewers that were hired by the Conservation Department staff and the Inland Wetland Commission. We plan to try to make this brief tonight, knowing that there is another hearing, and also because we're just going to provide the commission with a brief review of the changes we've made in response to the third-party applicants, third-party reviewers' comments and recommendations. That being said, we believe we have we have addressed all of their concerns, working through each of the comments and recommendations very diligently. Also understanding the recommendations from the previous denial that we received from the commission on the application that was heard about a year ago. So we do think that the information that has been put into the record really does represent the highest and best feasible, prudent alternative for this project on the property. And again, I'd just like to state, the project does not have any impacts to the adjacent offsite wetlands. That being said, Andy Semelides from our office was going to run through the response to the RTEL, the second response to the RTEL comments. These are the second time we have responded to third-party comments. And this should be the last, I believe. Thank you. And I will be back in a moment to address the comments from SLR.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Andy Semelides. I'm a principal and professional engineer with Landtech out of Westport. I think RTEL had 3 minor comments which we addressed. So just to go through their comments quickly, the first one is really a zoning matter. Doesn't really pertain to you folks, about zoning compliance. The other 3, and the last one is really a point-by-point response. So it was really 3 stormwater comments. One is the level spreader and making sure that level spreader doesn't, after it overtops the level spreader and goes down gradient towards the wetlands, that it doesn't then go on to neighboring properties. Comment number 2 was, I'm sorry, that was comment number 3. Comment number 2 was about the Cultex in relation to the retaining wall and drainage behind the retaining wall. And the 4th comment was really just a typo. We had a trench drain originally, if you folks recall, along the top when we were doing the snow removal here. We added a trench drain on top of this wall. We've relocated that snow removal to the front. So we omitted it on the plan view, but in the cross section, it was still showing the trench drain. So we just deleted the trench drain. In terms of the drainage behind the wall, we removed the drains behind the wall, as recommended by our the third-party reviewer. So there's no drains behind that retaining wall. And then the level spreader comment, we've revised this rear backyard now, which was to have soil amended and plantings and the such. We've now introduced a rain garden. So there's a rain garden here now also. So from a drainage perspective, again, just to recap, roof runoff, all paved surfaces, go through a catch basin, through a hydrodynamic separator, through the infiltration system, into a level spreader. The level spreader now overtops into a rain garden. And then from the rain garden, it would go out towards the wetland. So the rain garden now, I know LID was a big talk. So this is one of those, I'd like to call them biofiltration type LID that we've added and implemented now through the rear yard. And, you know, in a minute, you'll hear from Brian how we've replanted that entire backyard and incorporated plantings within the rain garden. And by regrading this backyard and morphing that soil, it allows that runoff to go directly to the wetlands versus going onto neighboring properties as well. So that one's kind of twofold. It was an RTEL comment as well as an SLR comment. So those were really the 3 minor comments that we introduced. The rain garden, just so you know, does about an additional 500 cubic feet of water quality volume. So I think before we had about 1,500 cubic feet of water quality volume. So that significantly added some more water quality measures and LID measures to this plan. I'm more than happy to answer any questions before I kick it over to Brian to go through SLR's comments.
Any members have questions at this point?
Hearing none, I'll have Brian go through SLR's comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Again, my name is Brian Carey, Director of Environmental Services for Landtech. I'm also a professional wetland scientist with the Society of Wetland Scientists. So we did get SLR's comments dated September 11th, right before the previous meeting. And we agree with them, and we basically changed our plans, the submitted updated plans to comply with their recommendations. That being said, the first one, as Andy discussed, was talking about LID. We had a little bit of a discussion about that. We ended up putting in the rain garden, as you see on the planting plan. We do agree that does provide a tertiary stormwater treatment. It provides a little bit, the water quality coming out of there will absolutely be improved. We think now with the stormwater treatment train, that this is really just a polishing unit, and that it really can't hurt putting that in there, and does provide a little bit of a nice site feature that will have some ecosystem benefits. Comment 2 from SLR was discussing the planting plan. They thought it was too linear and was not diverse enough. So we did update the planting plan dramatically. As you can see, we took out a lot of the linear plantings that they didn't like to see and put it into a more naturalized format. One of the comments was that they didn't like the species of fern we picked for the upland area. We actually ended up eliminating the fern species, which was we ended up eliminating the fern species, which is not a problem, and we increased the diversity of the plant species being planted. We also came up with a planting regime for the rain garden that consists of several different types of native plugs that is listed on the landscape plan on sheet L1, and that has all been put into the record. As you can see, the buffer is being maintained in the condition. Well, it's going to be improved from the turf grass condition to an area that over time is really going to succeed in a manner that will have a tall tree canopy with a thick understory of shrubs and grasses and sedges. That really addressed the second comment as far as the planting arrangements are concerned. The third comment, we completely agree. It was always something that was going to be done as part of the project, which is really just to remove any of the existing garbage, anthropogenic debris that's on the site. If you've, I think the commission, I don't know if you've been out there recently, but directly off-site and on the border of the property, there is an existing shed. That will be removed. All of the garbage and the foundation that is there will be removed. We will submit photographic evidence to the town to show them that that's all been removed. Obviously, that's something we need to do to install the plantings in the vegetated buffer. Again, comment 4 was about the hay-scented ferns. I discussed that. We did remove that and revise that. We are in agreement with that. Question 5, they asked for us to provide a soil amendment plan. Not a problem. We did supply that onto the planting plan for the contractor, so it is here. It's really dictated. It will be dictated by taking random soil samples throughout the planting buffer and determining what kind of amendments are necessary. So that will be on the contractor to work with us to basically implement that soil amendment program. We do think that's a good idea based on the amount of plantings that are going into the area. They asked for a responsible party monitor. That is absolutely something that we expected as part of the if and when the permit is issued, that would be a specific permit condition that the applicant has no problem following. We supplied what we think is the monitoring details regarding frequency and reporting that we see on other projects. So that is not a problem. As you know, during the last set of questions from SLR, they asked for a long-term habitat management plan for the buffer area, which we supplied. This time they were asking for permanent, if there's any interest in permanent protection. I did supply into the record as a response to the comments for SLR and also for the commission, model conservation easement that we've used in the past. The applicant has no issue putting a model conservation easement on that part of the property. What I'd submitted would need to be tweaked a little bit to allow for the maintenance of the rain garden. But that document, if needed for the conservation easement, could encumber the long-term habitat management plan, making it one standing document that could be put on the land records. And that way, if the property to change hands, that would be maintained in perpetuity as a permit condition that would also be filed on the land records. That is something we're willing to do. If the commission wants that, you could make it a part of any permit condition, part of the approval that would be filed prior to obtaining building permits. It would be done upfront. Question 7, they wanted to see a comparative analysis based on this plan, the existing 10-unit plan based on the 2018 approved plan. And we did provide that, showing that this 10-unit plan, which is in front of you now, does increase the buffer. It does treat all stormwater management in accordance with the town of Ridgefield regulations, but also the new state of Connecticut stormwater regulations. The tertiary treatment with the rain garden that we added obviously is just a benefit, and it is something that SLR had recommended, and we're in complete agreement with that. This information has been put in the record. I don't want to go through all of it because you can read it. And then basically the last comment they had was just to reestablish the flagging on the property line. We did do that again. I don't know if someone has removed it or it has been removing it, but that is no issue to do that prior to construction. Again, the erosion and setting controls will be placed, obviously on the inside to the west of the wetland line to protect the wetland. So there will be a demarcation barrier there, double row of silt fence before any work is done on the property. That being said, that is really all I have, except I did for the last minute get a email that was forwarded to me from Caleb Johnson from Megan Raymond of SLR this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Just stating that they had reviewed the updated plans that we had submitted. They again said that the long-term maintenance or management plan could be called out specifically in the conservation easement, document, which I kind of just hinted on. We're in agreement with that. That is not an issue. That is something we do regularly. And then she had one more question about response 7. Regarding the distance from the 2018 plan to the proposed building in the wetland boundary, and that was about 20 feet. It is in the document. So I think we've been able to answer all of the third-party reviewers' comments. We have reviewed the information submitted into the record by the intervener. I do think that this project is a marked improvement based on the comments. Right now, I cannot fathom any way that there would be any negative impact to wetlands from the proposal itself. So that being said, I'll turn it over to Jay. I don't know if he's got any comments just to clean things up, and then I can take any questions.
Thanks, Brian. Jay Klein for the record. I'm even though I'm a lawyer, I'm okay for now. I think, we've got Mr. Verbickus here. I'm sure he can speak to some of the changes that Brian and Andy just mentioned. There may be some comments following Dinah's or Mr. Verbickus's remarks, and I know there's some other folks from the public that will rebut if necessary. So,
Any questions immediately for Brian Carey before we go to Dinas Verbickus? Thing right now? Okay,
Thank you.
we can put him on.
Good evening. For the record, Dinas Verbickus, professional engineer with Artel Engineering Group. Per requests of the commission, we've reviewed the latest and greatest drawings that were submitted and calculations that were submitted, and based on our review, it appears that the applicant has addressed all of our comments, and much to our surprise and I guess delight, we saw that there was a rain garden that was introduced also, post level spreader, and some contouring and shaping of the back current lawn area that's going to be established with a whole host of plantings. It's been reshaped to spread that water equally across the backyard. Which it's a nice add, something that we weren't expecting in our office, but I'd like to see it. The other thing, looking through the drainage reports, I know that there was talk about the treatment of the first flush, the first inch and a half of rain, and in looking at the calculations, it appears that even for the 1 year storm, which is close to 3 inches of rain, the calculations show that there will be no water overtopping or flowing from that rain garden. So I think there have been great efforts made here to the best they can with what they have to infiltrate and assure that the wetlands do not or are not negatively impacted by the development. And from our perspective, it appears that there's, from the developed area to the backyard, about 75 feet, and looking at an aerial, again, just kind of overlaying with the rest of the neighborhood and surrounding areas, it's kind of the only property that's going to have any kind of a buffer to the wetlands. So I think it's a nice plan, and I'm happy to have assisted with the review, but I'm happy to answer any questions also that anyone might have. But thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Or Alan?
I just have some comments regarding this revised plan. And I'll just say I'm looking at it from the vantage point of being a licensed civil engineer. A question I have is, what's the groundwater table below the rain garden, which I think is more like a bioretention area? I know the overflow is over a 20-foot broad-crested weir. I saw that in the plan. I saw also in the calculations that the elevations between 200.50 and 201 were counted as the capacity of the rain garden. I think it should really be measured from the surface of the soil surface of the rain garden. And I think that was done incorrectly. I have concerns, and I think I've expressed them previously, that I'm concerned that the stockpiling of soil in the erosion control plan and the heavy equipment which will be located over the infiltration facility, the chambers, will impact the soils negatively, and it will cause compaction of the soils, and would therefore impact the ability of the soils to infiltrate at the rate that was described in the stormwater management report. And looking at also with the Connecticut Stormwater Manual, in a hydrologic soils group C, which is what this property is, it recommends an under drain. And I don't believe that the applicant has provided an under drain. And also say typically, and looking at the soils report, or the stormwater report and the soil borings, just to the deep hole number one, deep test hole number one, which is just to the east of the proposed rain garden, there are a variety of soils in there. There was like bricks, cinders, ash, all sorts of other materials there. And I guess that's one of my concerns, that this is not potentially in the footprint of the rain garden. This is not pristine soils, unfortunately. And so it would seem to me that would behoove the applicant to provide not just 6 inches of bioretention soil, which is rather paltry, but to actually do what is required in the Connecticut manual, which is 24 to 48 inches of bioretention soil. And it looks like to me that the design is done as a rain garden. I understand that, but I think a rain garden is more suited to much smaller drainage areas, something under 1,000 square feet, let's say. And this is obviously considerably more than that, which would be conveyed to this, what I think I would term a bioretention facility. So those are my comments on it. And those are comments and concerns that I have with the design, notwithstanding the comments of our peer reviewers. I just find these to be a concern to me. As I say that as a engineer who designs these types of facilities all the time.
You? Anyone else from the board? I had a quick question also. I'm not sure what resolution was arrived at for the placement of snow, which is now up at the front of the property, last I heard, and whether the tree is staying, and B, how that's going to be managed so that that snow doesn't melt out and run down Abbot Avenue. I think those questions came up last meeting. Maybe you could address that also, along with these, if you can.
Those are for me, right?
I'm sorry?
Those are for me, correct?
I assume so.
Okay.
Anyone on your team, though, whatever.
I was just making sure it wasn't for the third party reviewer.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me just pull up the plan again. I guess I'm a little confused about the bioretention comments and not being designed correctly in terms of taking credit for the first 6 inches. Let me just zoom in on the bioretention. So here's the bioretention system. We have restrictive soils 3.5 feet down. To create that 3-foot separation, we're using that 6 inches below existing grade to put in the bioretention mix. And then we're raising the grade 6 inches to create 6 inches of additional storage. So in this cross section, provided a quick little detail of this bioretention. And that's what you see here. The separating distance from the bottom of this to the restrictive soil is 36 inches. And then we built the grade up slightly, 6 inches, to create this volume here of additional storage. So that's how the bioretention system was designed. In terms of the stockpile area, we could easily relocate that stockpile area. We could add additional notes that there is no stockpiling on site, that all excavation work is directly hauled off site. That's also fine with us as well, to eliminate the need on stockpiling any soil on site. So we can amend the construction sequence to do that as well. And we can amend the construction sequence to make sure that drainage system is protected during construction. as well. Yes, the foundations typically go in first, and we can put construction fencing around that detention system to protect it. I'm not sure why we're shaking our head no, but we certainly can. There's means and methods to do anything. Not ideal, right? It's going to take longer construction, but that's, if that's what the condition and the commission wants, we could certainly do that. It's not like the drainage system is underneath the building. The drainage system is more than 10 feet away. So there's plenty of room to install footings and do what we have to do to construct the building. Typically on a site like this, we'd work our way out. Ideally, we'd probably even do the plantings and this work first, and then work our way out by building the wall and then the building. And then putting in the drainage systems near the end along with the utilities. So we don't see an issue with that. In terms of the snow removal, we did locate it back to the front. As you recall, originally it was here, and there was huge concerns about snow removal. So we put the snow removal to the front of the property. The tree, I'm not sure if that tree is going to end up surviving construction in its location, but it's way outside the regulated area, and shouldn't be a concern there. Considering the amount of replanting we're doing on this site, I don't think losing that one tree up front is that detrimental to this piece of property. The resources again are near the rear of the property, which we are heavily implementing a new vegetation plan. But yeah, we did relocate the snow removal to the front.
That tree, that tree is also a Norway maple, which is a state listed invasive species. Just to add that in there.
And yeah, we weren't stockpiling the snow in the front and planning to treat that snow and then discharge it off our site. So that wasn't the goal of where we're stockpiling. The goal of where we're stockpiling was to relocate it further away from the 100-foot upland review area. So we located it to the front of the property.
I think, Jay Klein, for the record, attorney for the applicant, seeing that Mr. Verbickus is here too, I think important to get his take on that feedback from Mr. Pilch. And also, if Mr. Verbickus could, if you don't mind, kind of reiterating, I think something that I heard earlier, but I want to be clear just because there is an intervener involved in this application. Of course, the question is whether this proposal that Andy and Brian have walked through tonight will likely have the effect of unreasonably polluting, impairing, or destroying the public trust in the offsite wetland.
I guess that's me, right?
Dinus, feel free to respond.
Sure. Oops. With respect to first, construction sequencing and so on, it's not going to be an easy one. And yeah, this, with this site perhaps working from the back and working out to the front, might be the way to do it. But again, I'm not sure. With respect to the stormwater management area and compaction due to equipment and so on, I think as the soils here are, I believe, fill soils, things that are not native to the site in the upper strata. I suspect that if there is any kind of compaction, those soils could be removed and replaced. Just trying to think how I would do it if I had to. But again, the best practices would be to try and avoid compaction. But I think there's ways to make it happen. With respect to potential impacts to the wetlands, I don't really see it. Again, I think there's a pretty substantial underground stormwater management system, and then again flowing into a rain garden type of planted area, and then overland flow for another 50 or more feet. And then the water has to go through the rock wall, and oftentimes at rock walls, although I have not visited the site to examine or look, but generally rock walls tend to, over time, either sink into the soil somewhat, or when farmers used to, and I don't know if this was farmed ever, but oftentimes as farmers would turn the soil with their machinery or oxen or however, the soils would naturally fall to the low side. And oftentimes part of what we see of rock walls from the high side, it tends to have some stones buried beneath. So that too could act as somewhat of a filtration system, or means by which to get that water back into the ground. Maybe babbling too much, but I think it provides more buffering to the wetlands than anything surrounding to the south or to the north of this property. So I think I think they've done a good job of managing managing the site and managing the client's expectations.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, here. Thank you for sharing that. We were in the office looking at that, just trying to compare where things were, and yeah, to the south you could see that that large building and parking area right up to the rock wall, and then properties to the north also.
Ellen, do you feel like your question was responded to adequately?
Do I have to pass judgment on that?
Do you have any further questions?
I have no further comment.
Okay, thank you. Carson?
Thanks, Susan. I have a question. It could be for you, Alan, or it could be for anybody. With respect to the compaction, potential compaction issue, particularly because this is, as admittedly as laid out, a difficult site to build what they're proposing to build. Not impossible, but difficult. Is it typical, or would it be possible to inspect the infiltration both in the rain garden and for the Coltex after they're installed, to ensure that compaction hasn't occurred and that they're functioning properly? Would that be a normal course of thing, or would that be a possible thing, or something that you would suggest?
Would that be for me or to Alan? I'm sorry.
If you're asking me, I suppose you could do that. Usually you put some type of standpipe or other measure in there where you can observe it and see what how long it takes for it to empty out. It'll give you an idea as to whether or not compaction has definitely impacted, compaction of the soil has had a deleterious effect on the on the infiltrative ability of the stormwater management practice.
Okay. Yeah, and I think to Dinus's point, if it turns out that either due to compaction or due to poor performance of the existing soils, things aren't working like they're supposed to be working, then they would have to fix it in order to comply with the permit, would be my understanding.
Right, but the issue I have in general is that placing it under a paved area and under what will be a future dumpster as well is just a very difficult location. It is best, in my professional opinion, that these be located in natural areas, not subject to construction traffic. That is a much better way to place, stormwater infiltration. And that is not being done here for reasons of design that the applicant has chosen.
Thank you. I think that helps clarify some of the questions I had with respect to compaction.
I'll let Mr. Rubikas have any comment too.
Sure. Again, I think with respect to checking the soils. Maybe what could be done, rather than check them after this system has been installed, maybe do, some additional tests just to confirm that soil conditions prior to the installation are still the same as they were prior to the start of construction. And if there are challenges associated with that, and something is more compact, again, the soils can be, because it's, again, fill on the property. I would think that you could remove and amend those soils, or remove them to the degree where the soils are not as compact as one might expect. And with soil compactions, I've had instances where more often than not in farm fields, that have been farmed for years and years, you find that the soils are generally pretty tightly packed in that upper 12 maybe inches, 15 to 18 inches of strata. And the soils beneath that, well, they're either the hard pan soils or something that's more free draining, depending on where you are. And just as a recent occurrence, we had an opportunity to do soil testing for a property owner that has for years allowed their fields to be utilized for parking during the summer, fair times. And oftentimes during the summer or during the fair in Bridgewater, more often than not, it rains, and then the vehicles are dragged out, and there's ruts that are 12 inches deep, tractor ruts, car ruts, and so on. And having conducted deep test holes and percolation test holes in those C-type soils, still we found that the percolation rates and infiltration of that soil was suitable for septic system, and it held up, much to my surprise, because I too thought that, holy mackerel, that's, how am I going to get any kind of a percolation rate here?
And to Mr. Fincham's question or comment too, a couple of moments ago, if I may, I think your observation, putting a condition of approval, an enforceable condition on any, if an approval is issued by this board, that we'd have to do that additional testing before we get a building permit to build the project. That's certainly a condition that would be appropriate to address your concern. And if those, if those results indicate that some amendments are required, as Mr. Verbickas mentioned, that's something we address.
Tim?
Thank you. And to Attorney Klein's point, my recommendation to expand on that could involve those conditions where the site monitor, who's qualified either as an engineer or soil scientist or similar, could do inspections throughout the process and report back to the board with their findings at certain milestones throughout the earthwork portion of the project. That's certainly a possibility as well at the applicant's expense. I would support that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Or if not, I will invite the interveners. I don't know if we have Catherine Brown here tonight to comment.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay,
We
great.
can, I assume.
So I think if Steve Trinkas is available, I'll let him go first, and then I'll add a few remarks. I gave most of my spiel last time, but I have a few more comments, but I'll let him go first because I know he's got other hearings tonight as well in other towns.
Okay.
Steve, are you on?
We
Yes,
have-
I am.
We have him. Okay.
So, Caleb or Artie, could I share the screen, my screen for a couple minutes?
You're all set.
Okay. Okay, I submitted Steve Trinkus for the record. I'm a professional engineer from Southbury representing the neighbors and interveners. In my letter of September 24th, I did pollutant loading calculations which discount the second and third systems in series. The first is a catch basin, the second is an online separator, and the third is the underground detention system. And because as the water gets cleaner, it gets harder to remove other pollutants. So just the total suspended solid aspect, the applicant's only about 67%, not a DEP goal of 80%. Adding the rain garden is not going to get you over the top, but I'll get into that in a second. Alan brings up a very valid point about compaction, as does Carson. I just want to get back up to the cross section here. There's a lot of fill going in here for the building. You can see that, and you can see this area, between the Caltech and the building. Putting test pipes in isn't going to be able to prove the infiltration rate is good, bad, or, ugly, quite honestly. The only thing you can do is do infiltration tests of the native soil before you put in the Caltech system to make sure that it has the same infiltration rate as the native soils in that area. And then you build the system, and quite honestly, probably cross your fingers, it'll work. I definitely agree with Alan that these practices are way better under undisturbed, unpaved surfaces in a native environment, because you generally are just trenching for the Caltex, putting them in native soil, putting the gravel in and backfilling them. So there's no risk of compaction because all the work is done from outside the excavation of it. But this is part of the reason why DEP requires you only use 50% of your slowest observed infiltration rate to, account for construction issues. But, as I think, other people have pointed out, these are not fully native soils. There's really a hodgepodge of material out here. How well this works is quite honestly anybody's guess. I don't have a lot of confidence in it. But the reason I want to share the screen, and this goes to a point I raised last meeting, this is the section of the longitudinal section going from the west to the east of the Caltech system. Now they're showing a 36-inch separation to groundwater from the bottom of the Caltech, but the stone is an integral part of the system. The 36-inch separation per the DEP manuals is from the bottom of the permeable system. That's the gravel layer. That's not the Caltech, because water coming into the Caltech is going to saturate the gravel layer first, quite honestly, long before it ever fills up the Caltech. So this does not conform to the DEP manual providing the vertical separation. Now on the rain garden, and you can just ignore the little dimensions here, the rain garden itself is the hatched area. The dashed line is the native soil. So this is being installed above the native soil, anywhere between 8.5 inches on the western end to literally about 16 inches on the uphill end of it. There's no specifications for what kind of material is going to be placed between the bioretention media and the native soil. There's no call for scarification of the native soil. So basically, this is not going to infiltrate. You have a very dense grass mat here, and that's obvious in the field. Additionally, the infiltration tests that were done by Land Tech to the east of the rain garden, there's several of them, I think infiltration 1, 2, and 3, were done at various depths between 20 and 27 inches. So, that's down in here. No infiltration tests in this case were done on that existing ground surface, and that's your infiltrative surface today, not 27 or 20 inches below grade. The rain garden on the plan is called out, elevations around, I think 201 to 201.5. And yet if you go back to the detail, which I think is sheet 8, you'll notice that it says 209.2 to 210.2. So that's clearly kind of a cut and paste of, something else. And that shows a foot of storage, not 6 inches of storage. Another key aspect of addressing water quality, simply providing a water quality volume does not equate to treatment. They have to be designed properly. I agree with Alan, the 6-inch media depth is really inadequate to provide adequate treatment, particularly for nutrients. But they're also, if you look at this detail on sheet 9, they're putting a layer of filter fabric under the soil media. If that soil media gets, if the filter fabric gets clogged, which it will, then you basically have to dig up the entire rain garden to replace it. It calls out a soil media for the bioretention, but there are no specifications provided for what that media is. And that is critical not only for plant growth, but also for the infiltrative capacity of these systems. So, the bottom line is there's still going to be water quality impacts to the downgrading wetlands because of inadequate treatment of the runoff. That has not changed from the first application to this one. This application is a really a conventional plan. This is not a lid plan. Just because you put a rain garden here or bioretention, the two terms, in my professional opinion, are interchangeable. The design is the same. I know, as an example, New York State has two different specifications, but at the end of the day, in the lid world, a rain garden and a bioretention system are the same creature. But when you look at this site, you've got the row of buildings, all impervious. You have the driveway and all the parking, all impervious. It's all directly connected via catch basins to structural drainage systems. This is conventional stormwater management. It's not anywhere close to what is, a lid design. And simply throwing a shallow rain garden on here is what we term greenwashing. It makes it look green, but it doesn't change the fact that it doesn't work in the first place. The bottom line is there will be water quality impacts to the offsite wetlands, and that's going to cause changes to the water chemistry over time. These impacts, as I've stated previously, do not occur on day one, but day 100 you will see it. So it doesn't work. That's the short answer here. As the snow storage, putting it out front, I mean, you can't really put it around that tree. I don't think your plow guy or anybody can get in there to dump it without damaging the tree. If the crown of the tree is outside the limit of construction, then the tree will likely survive. But if the crown extends into the westernmost unit, the roots also mirror the crown of the tree. And I say this having a Bachelor of Science in Forestry, that, depending on how much of the roots are damaged, the tree will get impacted. It may not die today, but, one day you're going to wake up and you're going to find the maple tree is, pretty much on its last legs. In this case, since there's no place for snow storage where it can drain through the stormwater management system, it basically, all the snow has to go off-site. The stockpiled snow is one of the highest sources of non-point source pollutants because it's all stockpiled and then it melts in the spring. Back, I don't know if it was 2011 or 12, one of our heavy snow years, which we have not seen lately, there was a massive stockpile up in the Boston area, yes, in an urban environment, but it's all directly connected impervious cover that had extremely high concentrations of metals and hydrocarbons in the stockpiled snow. So, that's why it's got to be treated. And if you can't treat it, you have no choice but to, take it off site. Some of the plants in the rain garden, in looking at the quick list of them, it stated they prefer moist to wet environments. Rain gardens and bioretention systems are dry environments. The plants need to be upland plants to survive. If wetland plants will survive in a bioretention system, then it's not going to infiltrate because the hydro period within the soil is high enough to support the wetland plants. These systems are dry systems. The plants that have to be chosen to tolerate the temporary ponding depth, typically 12 inches on a bioretention system or 6 inches in this case. But the bottom line is the rain garden really adds nothing to this. If you look at the stormwater report and the revised pollutant loading for TSS, they show 100% removal. It is impossible to remove 100% of any pollutant. There are what is termed irreducible concentrations for TSS, nutrients, metals, hydrocarbons, and these are basically background levels that no matter how well you treat it, you will never get the concentration below it. So getting 100%, you can't do. That's the bottom line. So, but again, the calculations I provided in my recent letter of September 24th, show, the reality of what would be treated here just from TSS. I just only looked at that. I did not look at the other ones, other pollutants, because conventional drainage like this does nothing for nutrients. There is some reduction in metals and hydrocarbons, but not close to the current, I think, goals of Connecticut B in the 2000, Connecticut DEP in the 2004, 24, version of the stormwater manual. So it remains my professional opinion. There will be water quality impacts to the offsite wetlands. Alan and Carson both bring up very valid points that are about the compaction, and there's not an easy solution to it. I will tell you that. These systems under parking lots generally do fail at some point. Years ago, way years ago, when Home Depot was built in Danbury, there was massive Cultec systems under that parking lot. And about 5 years after they were put in, a large section of them collapsed and, created a sinkhole in the parking lot, which was repaired. So again, these are much more effective when they're not under the pavement, not only for construction, but also for maintenance purposes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dinas, do you have a response?
Yes, just a couple of things. Just with respect to the new manual that we're looking at. In the manual, it does state, and again, just from what I've read, it states when you do have an infiltration system, a subsurface infiltration system that, and in this case has enough capacity for the water quality volume, that for the most part, you're about 90% removal of total suspended solids, as well as nitrogens and phosphorus. And then in that sentence, it also states something to the effect that you could assume also that your floatable debris would also be removed to that degree. With respect to placement of the systems under pavement, it's done frequently. The shops at Marcus Dairy, on that, we've got probably a mile of these Cultec types units under the pavement. It's been okay at the Danbury Hospital, in the medical arts facility there. We had also a sizable amount of under asphalt stormwater management. Although that scenario is a little bit different in that the soils were really sandy. With respect to the Home Depot collapse that occurred, that occurrence happened in the infancy of these plastic infiltration products, and at the Home Depot they had stacked the products crisscross in a layer of, I don't know, two or three layers deep, maybe more. And what had happened, they found through their studies, was that that the upper units sheared down through the lower units. So there was, of course, a collapse in that volume. And since then, the manufacturers specified geofabric between layers if you were to stack these units. But of course, now there's bigger, taller, all sorts of units that you can put underground. So yeah, over time, maybe something will happen, but in these instances, again, based on the water quality manual, you put in your hoods over the pipes, and in this particular instance, I think I saw some kind of a water quality system also that the water flows through prior to going into the subsurface infiltration system. And again, just, I guess, points of clarification and, you know, regarding placement of things under asphalt. It's done frequently, and nobody knows about it because they're under asphalt. I don't know how to put down my hand.
I think maybe, oh, you figured it out, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. Brian, do you want to go
Yeah,
next on that?
I just want to respond quickly to something that was said regarding the planting choice for the rain garden. What Mr. Trinkhouse said was really just disingenuous. When we design for planting a rain garden, we use numerous scientific literature sources that not only come from the state of Connecticut, but also numerous books to develop those planting regimes. We look at available seed mixes, plants that are available from either New England wetland plants or Ernsts. We talk directly with the suppliers about specific sites. So to say that the planting regime for that area would not work in the rain garden, it's just not factual at all. If I could just share my screen right now, he's talking about, you know, whether it's going to be wet or dry. All the plants that have been specified for the rain garden are either facultative wet or facultative upland, meaning that they occasionally, and you can even see it in the wetland planting terms, what those terms mean. So it's not that we're not specifying obligate species or truly upland species. These are species of plants that can tolerate wet conditions, and in some conditions can also tolerate drier conditions. So to say that this is going to function exactly one way or the other, that's just not how nature works. Sometimes it's going to be wet, sometimes it's going to be dry. Those are the considerations we take into account when we do these designs. And I'm sure Mr. Trinkhouse, as a professional who does similar design drawings, uses the similar type of methodologies that he is disregarding right now when he does his own projects. I'm sure he has relationships with Ernst Seeds. I'm sure he has relationships with New England wetland plants. I'm sure he basically consults with them, as does all of the consultants in the state of Connecticut who are doing similar projects. So I do take an exception to that. And I know Andy is probably going to have some more responses, but it's just not factual to say that these plants are not going to work in there. When building a rain garden is pretty typical. If you go to the town of Greenwich, which they have a very specific rain garden situation, these are the plants that they require. Nemo,
Okay.
Connecticut Nemo.
Okay, we really are trying to wrap things
Thank
up
you.
because I do have another hearing coming after. We have another hearing coming up, so quick responses would be welcome.
Sure. I just got two quick ones. One is Mr. Trinkhouse brings up a good point of our bioretention mix, and we have a void between that and existing elevation there of the ground. So we're more than happy to extend that biomix to be within the first 6 inches of the grade there. So we're fine with extending that biomix further down. In terms of, and I think we're beating a dead horse a little bit here, but I just want to share Coltech website really quick. It is a standard practice for these to be under parking lots. You go on their website right here on the homepage. You see them here in a big shopping center parking lot, and again here on a single family right underneath the driveway. It is very standard practice for these systems. This is right from the manufacturer to be under paved surfaces. It's very common practice to have those there. And I think that's it. In terms of the TSS removal, I think we agree to disagree on what each system removes along the treatment train. And I think we point to the manual, and that's how our design is done. And those are the figures we use in terms of TSS removal in our treatment drain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim?
Thank you. Just wanted, I guess, question or clarification for Mr. Sumawidi, related to stormwater management. Can you just, for the record, and I guess for my question, reiterate again the design, which storm the stormwater management system is designed for currently to handle which storm size?
You broke up there a little bit at the end. What did you say?
Oh, sorry. Which storm size the management system's made or designed to handle? Is that for the 100-year?
Got it. Yeah, let me pull that up for you. I think I did that in our first presentation. I did a comparison chart. Let me see if I could pull that up. But yes, it reduces it up to the 100-year, Tim, and all storm events up to that. But I did present that at the first hearing, all, the differential and how much it decreased up to the 100-year.
Right, and the reason why I asked that question is that was dated without the new design, including the rain garden. My concern is, part of my question is, similar rain event that we had that the state experienced 3 or 4 weeks ago on a Sunday. Ridgefield got 8 inches in 12 hours. Given a storm like that, which we see frequently, what's your professional opinion on how the management system would handle that volume, similar volume, and overflow would end up in the rain garden, and if there's any perceived threat to inundation of the rain garden from the watercourse overflowing its banks? Based on grades and separation distances, do you believe there would be any conflict with surface water management related to the river and the watercourse and the management system? Thank you.
Sure. No, we do not. So we didn't actually plug in that rain event into our model and see what it did. But based on our design, it would flow through the level spreader, through the rain garden, and then ultimately overtop the berm of the rain garden and down towards the wetlands. And there's nothing in between that's prohibiting that flow. So we're gonna obviously make the flood conditions better in the area by putting in all this infrastructure. But it won't have an impact on our design. It's still going to treat the first flush. Anything beyond that, obviously, then yeah, I mean, all water is overtopping every system and going out into the wetland source.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Trinkus, a very quick rebuttal, if you would, because we're running out of time.
Yes, well, very quick, as I was close to ground zero on the August 18th event, where we had a 200-year event of 10.4 inches in roughly 11 hours. In a 3-hour period, we had 6 inches of rain. That is what caused the flash flooding. A site on Route 34, just before the Stevenson Dam, it's a banquet facility, all sand and gravel, had underground gallery system in sand and gravel, and that flush of water, that downpour, blew the gallery system out of the ground and into parts of Lake Zor. So a storm like that, the intensities were off the charts, and quite honestly, any stormwater management system is going to fail, but something that's underground is going to blow apart the underground system. Surface systems would likely overflow, but something underground is going to fail because of the intensity of the rain. That was the issue in that storm. Thank you.
Okay. Catherine?
Yes. Can
Guess
you
we're
hear me?
ready for you. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Trinkus, in the interest of time, I only have the same question I asked last time. based on the revised plans. Is it reasonably likely that this project, even with the revised plans, will have the effect of impairing the public trust in the wetlands and watercourse system offsite?
It is my professional opinion that yes, it will.
Okay. In the interest of time, I pretty much gave most of my remarks last time. I just want to point a few things out. Some letters have come in from Miss Konechny, the wildlife photographer who photographed the blue spotted salamander, as well as the application to add that to the DEEP, NDDB list. It doesn't appear on the list yet, but it's been applied for. And that was referenced in Dr. Danzer's report, as well as a box turtle, which is on the list. Both of those are listed species. I would also refer you to an email, which I don't think you got from, I don't know if the hearing is going to close tonight, but a woman who lives nearby, Chris Ann Benson, she mentions a stream on Katuna Street. It runs under the CVS parking lot through Ballard Park. It exits by Gilbert Street. It doesn't appear in any maps. There's been a lot of discussion of flooding, and this is a wet area. And I think the concerns we have about overtopping are significant. Also, if you could just re-refer to the Gorman letter. Aaron Gorman had given a good synopsis of the storm events and is also a licensed professional and had mentioned, 6 units. If this is scaled back, an option exists, but that has not been studied, that has not been presented. If it was reduced, then the remediation wetland, I don't know the exact name, but it's in your regulations. I think it's called a extended detention shallow wetland system, could be done, but it needs more space. So that could be an option that could have been pursued, but has not been pursued as a feasible, prudent alternative. All of the information that's in the record indicates that this is a significant and valuable wetland. It's got listed species relying on it. It's very unusual and unique because it's so close to the town center. And the fact that there are nearby houses that were built, 100 years ago or a long time ago is not relevant to this. Just because we had practices historically that are not good, that actually makes it even more necessary to have better protections now and rely on the protections that we have. So that's basically my conclusion remarks. If there's any more evidence presented later, I would appreciate a chance to speak again. And I would ask that this commission not allow any new material to be presented tonight because it has not been submitted prior to tonight. Also, some of the material was submitted pretty late, and if any of the experts need time, I would ask that the commission give them time to adequately review it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Trinkus, is that your hand up one more time or not?
I was raising my hand, but maybe someone else was too. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. Please proceed.
Sure. Jay Klein again for the record. I'm appreciative of everyone's time here this evening, and I know your night, folks on the board, is in many ways just beginning. I look to you for direction in terms of next steps procedurally. If you'd like us, as Ms. Braun alluded to, if you'd like us to, I guess, make our closing argument as the applicant, for lack of a better way of putting it, we can do that this evening. If you'd like us to continue the conversation to your next meeting. However you all would like to proceed.
Well, to continue it, we would need you to give the extension at this point.
Right.
And
if that's something you all need, please tell us. And
my only feeling is that we seem to have listed an awful lot of possible conditions, and it would be better to get as many of those as possible into the plans, I think. I don't think we like to usually have a laundry list of conditions. We have monitoring the conservation easement, checking the systems for compaction while we're during the process, needing to extend the biomix in the rain garden. I think we talked about the sequence of planting. I still don't know where we landed on the snow removal, if there's any thought of taking it off site, which I think came up in the original application, the 2000, whenever the previous one came up. I don't remember the date, but at any rate, if that's possible, it just seems as if it might solve one problem.
So it sounds like what would be helpful in addition to the sort of conclusory remarks from us is some documentation of the conditions or potential conditions that were discussed here.
If you would, and if we still have a couple of things that we need to discuss as possible permit conditions, it'll certainly be a shorter list.
Okay.
Because I started writing them down and it became kind of long.
You do the same thing that I do. You try to listen and write at the same, and it gets
Okay, well then with your letter, if you would send us a letter that you're giving us, how many days do we normally get, Artie, with these?
We have another 65 days. He can grant us whatever days he wants to give us.
Okay, so
Till
either
October
through the
10th.
next, we can do it
Till
a
October
meeting at a
10th.
time, if you
Yeah,
want to
we'll-
just,
Sure, we'll send an extension after we log off here too. We'll do it to the 11th just in case things
Yes,
run late. for
yes,
whatever reason on the
yes.
10th. So
That-
we'll all be back here for this hearing on Thursday, October 10th at 7 p.m. via Zoom.
Right.
let me grab my calendar, make sure,
Thank you.
makes me nervous, these dates.
Get it right. Get it
We've
right.
gotten them wrong before. That wasn't-
We certainly don't want that. I think. what-
I've
what
had
we-
that happen too, so I mean, all right, so yes, it's the 10th.
Okay, great. So what we'll endeavor to do is have that condition documentation ready for you all promptly. Have our
Right.
closing remarks here. I think before we log off, well, we've heard from a lot of folks. I think it is important to note that Mr. Verbickas quite clearly stated in his independent review that there would not be an adverse impact on the wetlands. And I think that will, it will inform our presentation on the 10th. So thank you so much for your time this evening.
Very much appreciate everyone's brevity, and we are continued then until the 10th. Thank you.
This is Kirk Carr, on the record. Thank you for watching.